Welcome back, welcome in to the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog. That's right, as you can tell from my getup, I've got my Tim Dwight Iowa jersey on, I got my game day hair poofed properly. Game day is upon us. Welcome back, this is our Week 5 preview show. I am your host with you once again this week. Holla at your boy, Blair Parks. Coming to you live from the Hawkeyes, where here on the Black and Gold vlog, we discuss and celebrate all things college football across the entire landscape, from coast to coast, north, south, this conference, that conference, every conference, team, player, coach in between, but with the special emphasis on our Black and Gold squads of the Missouri Tigers and the Iowa Hawkeyes. Woo! What a weekend of football we have on tap. If you were with me last week during my Week 4 preview, I coined Week 4 as the appetizer. Now, to bring you back up to speed, Weeks 4 to 7, and this is why I've chosen to take this approach. Weeks 4 to 7 is going to act as our 4-course meal. When we close the book, when Week 7's over, we turn the page, close the book on it. Finally, based on this year, which has been anything but normal, by the end of our 4-course meal, Week 7, we should be provided some clarity and have some separation between teams to finally see who the legitimate playoff contenders are. Who are those teams that are maybe just slightly on the outside looking in, who might need just a little bit of help, and then everybody else. So Week 5, our next course is the soup and salad. So I am super pumped. It's a beautiful day, early fall day here in Missouri, where I reside. Nothing quite like it. I'm getting so pumped, but I just had to realize, and I did earlier this week during the Week 4 review show, that we are already a third of the way through the college football season. Single tier, tier, like Dr. Evil would say. So, man, this is excellent so far. It has been anything but a normal year, as I said. I'm going to repeat a stat I shared with you earlier this week, that when you look back, and I did take a glance at the initial AP top 25 poll that came out prior to Week 0. Of those 25 teams, roughly 40%, I think actual math would be 37, maybe 38, but once again, you've heard me say this before. I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm not a smart guy. I'm not a smart man, but I do know a lot about college football. So roughly 40%. 9 out of the 25 teams that were in that initial AP poll have at least 2 losses. That is the most ever during the modern AP era, which I believe the AP began in 1936. So this is an historic beginning to this college football season. So, and this weekend, we have, just like I said, some monster, incredible matchups that are going to potentially turn the college football world upside down. But today, I've got 4 topics to discuss with you. I'm going to share with you my initial takes on some of those big-time matchups. Then I'm going to unveil to you, as I do every week during the preview shows, my updated Power 5 conference power rankings. Where is your conference compared to that conference? Then I'm going to give you a little bit of insight on what I forecast, what I'm going to need to see for our beloved black and golds of Missouri and Iowa. And then my last topic today is going to be everybody's favorite segment, the Week 5 Pick'em segment. And this week, I will be blessed to have another guest picker, friend, colleague, coworker. My friend, the Brad, is going to be joining me, taking on the People's Champion, who's won 3 straight weeks. Right now he wears the crown, and it is black and gold. He'll be taking on me and my former co-host, Charlie, MIZ-ZOU fan number 1. I also have his picks. We have an ongoing competition for the season. So I will give you the picks of the 15 games that I have selected for this week's segment of Pick'em. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. And as you just noticed, I only have 4 topics. Usually I have 5, but 2 reasons why I wanted to cut this down a little bit. This episode is, first of all, I want to spare you all the hour and a half potentially of staring at this monstrosity in front of you. I get it. It's difficult. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I have a face for radio. Please don't adjust your cameras. It's on my end, not yours. I know I might come off more as the toxic Avenger, so to speak, but maybe, my game day garb here can take away some of that. But also, I wanted to have ample time to talk about some of these huge matchups that Week 5, the soup and salad, are going to provide us. And at the end of the weekend, next week's show, tune in for the Week 5 review, and I'll discuss with you how everything tasted when push came to shove. And please, I'll say this a couple times, I'm doing this. This has been an absolute pleasure and honor to do this for you, in front of you, the Black and Gold family. Please try to spread the word. Let's reach more Black and Gold fans, Missouri, Iowa, but all college football fans in general. So please, like, share, subscribe, comment, let me know how I'm doing, and let's keep on spreading the word. Let's keep a good thing going. And that's exactly why I'm not switching my game day garb, if you must know. Iowa is 4-0 after all, moving into October, and I've worn this during every preview show, and I've wore this on every game day Saturday, and I don't want to give any hex or bad juju to my Hawkeyes, so let's get into it. So, one of the first key matchup that I want to bring up is basically the equivalent of the Super Bowl, and there were so many big-time games that I could have picked as this week's spotlight game. In any other normal week, it would have been this one, because it has huge ramifications, not just for the AP Top 10 rankings and also my team power rankings, but eventually for the college football playoff, for all non-Power 5 teams who have struggled to get a place at the big table with the adults rather than being relegated to the child's table. Number 7 Cincinnati travels to number 9 Notre Dame. You talk about 2 different styles, 2 different histories. This right now is the pinnacle, the highlight of Cincinnati football's history. The last few years under Coach Luke Fickell, who may or may not be gone at the end of this season, there are plenty of coaching opportunities that I believe will come his way. Some have already opened up. He'll have to ask himself that question, should I stay or should I go now? Time will tell, but hey, money talks, and it does. So this is why this is such a huge game. This is Cincinnati's moment, and the best thing that could have happened to them was last week Notre Dame beating Wisconsin, which it seems like Wisconsin more or less beat themselves. Let's just be honest, Graham Mertz was Notre Dame's MVP, their best player during that game, and that's something I did kind of discuss more in depth during the Week 4 review show earlier this week. But that win for Notre Dame makes this even more an important game for Cincinnati. If they are able to win this game, and right now they are actually favored via Vegas on the road in South Bend. Now, I'm not a big gambler. I don't do that. I rather just give people advice and then they lose their own money. But this line really sticks out to me. That says that people aren't quite sold on how good Notre Dame is, but they have seemed to kind of just pulled a little Houdini and escaped here and there most of the times this season. So this is a huge moment. If Cincinnati wins this game, And what we've seen this year, the parity that has happened, to where Clemson has 2 losses, they are eliminated, the normal juggernaut that we have in the playoff, they're out. Ohio State has an early season loss, they're outside the top 10, which is crazy to think about, especially being a Big Ten man based on their dominance lately. And Oklahoma's offense still continues to look non-impressive. Iowa, who's the number 5 team in the nation, huge question mark still on offense. If these teams that are normal power players continue to falter, if Cincinnati wins this game, runs the table, which their schedule does not look very daunting. They do have UCF at home and play an undefeated SMU team that I absolutely love. They are going to find themselves right there. They are going to have a chance to crash the college football party, and that's what we want. But the flip side of that, Notre Dame, if they win this game, their schedule doesn't really look that difficult down the stretch either. So if they win out, they're going to be in the playoff because they're Notre Dame. But actually, when it comes down to this is the conundrum that we have. If Cincinnati loses and then wins out, they're probably going to get a New Year's Six Bowl. But if they lose, they are absolutely eliminated from the playoff discussion. Notre Dame, they lose, but still win out and have 1 loss, they could still find themselves in the playoff. See, that is why this game is rigged against the non-Power 5 teams. That's why this game means so much. But I hope Cincinnati doesn't put all of that on their shoulders. But if they lose, they're basically just going to have to wait for the next opportunity, and we don't know when that can be. So if they lose, I'll let Mr. Willy Wonka describe it the best. You lose, you get nothing. Good day, sir. That's what it'll be for Cincinnati. Huge game. I can't wait for that one. Next game, a huge clash in the SEC. And just to give you a good idea, the SEC, like the Big Ten did in Week 1, the SEC is going to absolutely own Week 5. I mean, every matchup in the SEC, the conference games, I believe there's 6 of them, have huge ramifications moving forward. If you recall, Week 1, the Big Ten absolutely owned Week 1. We had opening Thursday night, Ohio State was at Minnesota, a game that went to the wire. Friday night, we had Michigan State at Northwestern, the defending Big Ten West champion. And then Saturday, we had 2 games of ranked opponents. We had Penn State at Wisconsin, who got the victory, really started their ascension up the polls. Then the afternoon game, we had my Hawkeyes hosting a ranked Indiana squad. Iowa absolutely flexed like Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the 70s, and that began our ascension up the polls. But this week, it is all about the SEC. So this first matchup, huge. Number 8, Arkansas, the darling that has caught the eye and the noise and attention of every college football fan. Number 8, Arkansas travels to number 2, Georgia. And Georgia just coming off a massive win, 62 to Donut. That's right, 0.0 over Vanderbilt. But we don't know. Is this Georgia team legitimately that good, or was that more or less just a glorified scrimmage? Or is that more or less to mentioning the status of Vanderbilt for football? If you tuned in earlier this week, my team power rankings, I did move Georgia ahead of Alabama. So I have Georgia 1, Alabama 2 in my personal power rankings, but that can absolutely change after this weekend. And Arkansas, I mean, coming basically out of nowhere. This is a great story. If you're unaware of Arkansas's a turnaround, they are 2 or 3 years removed from losing at home to teams like Colorado State, to San Jose State, the Spartans, and Western Kentucky. This has been an absolute tremendous turnaround in such a short time there in Fayetteville, Arkansas. That's why this is almost unbelievable. This is game 2 of a 4-game gauntlet that the Hogs have to do. Pig Sue-wee! They did win last week in Arlington against Texas A&M, who was in the top 10. Now they have fallen out. very physical game. They come in limping, but can they go on the road to Georgia and pull off another miraculous victory? We'll have to wait and see. The line for this one has come down to, I think, 17 points. That's a big line, especially when you look at a top 10 matchup. But yeah, but what a game. What a game this is going to be. All eyes will be on this game, absolutely. Another big matchup in the ACC, which, yes, I still do have to mention the ACC. It is still a little bit relevant, but because it's still, it's up for grabs. I don't know who wants to win this conference, but I am excited by a few teams that somebody happened to maybe prognosticate and basically foretold they could be sleepers. Boston College, who's now 4-0. They are 4-0 for the first time since 2007, when a quarterback by the name of Matt Ryan, maybe you are familiar or heard of him. So they're undefeated, and they travel to number 25 Clemson, who is absolutely reeling. They are the walking wounded after their loss last week in overtime at NC State. Me personally, I don't understand why this Clemson team is still even ranked, other than just the beauty pageant. If it was Clemson on their jerseys, they're still ranked. If it was a team like Iowa or Wake Forest, they would not be. So this is another huge potential moment for Boston College to really announce that we are a contender for the ACC Atlantic Division. We have staying power. All right, so we'll have to wait and see how this game plays out. I don't know if Clemson's going to be able to bounce back. It is in Death Valley. Clemson, it's at home, so maybe they can wake up, right the ship. But I'm really excited to watch this game. And last time I checked, initially, early in the week, the line on this game was 16 points. I think now it's dropped to 14.5. I'm telling you right now, Clemson may not score 14 points. Their offense is that absolutely inept. The offensive line can't run block. They can't pass protect. They can't do anything. And that is one of those universal truths of football, whether it's at the college level, NFL, Pee-wee. It doesn't matter. If your line goes, so goes your team. And that is their issue there with Clemson. So we'll see if Boston College can remain undefeated and show that they do have staying power. Another game, very unexpected matchup in the Big 12 of two undefeateds that I did not see coming. Number 21 Baylor, who's undefeated, knocked off Iowa State last week. Iowa State has really underperformed. That was my surprise playoff pick. So unfortunately, I've lost that. I guess you all were right. I was crazy. What do I know? I'm dumber than a box of rocks. There's proof of it. So undefeated number 21 Baylor goes to undefeated number 19 Oklahoma State, who defeated ranked Kansas State last week. They meet up in Stillwater. So this is going to be another big matchup, because the winner of this game then basically is going to pronounce themselves as a challenger to Oklahoma. And Oklahoma is looking wounded. They are looking very, very off. I mean, right now, they've dropped the last 2 consecutive weeks, even though they've got 2 victories. They've won their last 2 games, but not in convincing fashion. You didn't say the magic word. You didn't say the magic word. If somebody knows what movie that's from, I would be very impressed. Comment, let me know if you identify that one. So yeah, I think Oklahoma now in the wins they have against Power 5 opponents, I believe now they have won by a combined, 3, 7, 10, I think 10 points. 10 points. 10 points. Where is their offense? And maybe Texas is now actually going to rise and be a contender. Offensively, they have no problems. They put up a 70 burger on Texas Tech recently, but basically, is their defense going to step up? I mean, is their defense still primordial ooze like it was against Arkansas? We'll have to wait and see. So big game in the Big 12. Another one, interesting matchup in the Big 10. Number 14, Undefeated, surprisingly, Michigan travels to Madtown to take on Wisconsin. Wisconsin last week against Notre Dame, that was my spotlight game for Pick'ems last week, absolutely imploded in the fourth quarter. If you look at the score, you're going to say, wow, this was a blowout. It was anything but. Early in the fourth quarter, it was 13-10 Wisconsin. They had just kicked a field goal, taken the lead. Ensuing kickoff, Notre Dame runs it back for a touchdown, and then the Graham Mertz show continued. For the game, Graham Mertz threw 4 interceptions, and 2 of those resulted in pick sixes, both in the fourth quarter. So, and last time I checked, Wisconsin was actually a 1-point favorite at home over a ranked undefeated Wolverine squad. I mean, this game really has a lot of intrigue because it really is strength versus strength. The Michigan rush attack has looked absolutely legitimate. Last week, Rutgers surprisingly did slow them down. And what a good effort by Rutgers in a losing effort. 20-13 at the Big House was the final. Kudos to Greg Schiano. He's turning a corner there in Piscataway. But they were able to slow down the Michigan rush attack. And that's bad news. If that is primarily going to be Michigan's first and second option to try to run the ball, they're going up against the best rushing defense in the nation. A defense that gave up 3 yards rushing last week to Notre Dame. And normally, if you do that, you're going to win games. But obviously, they did not last week. So something has to give. It really comes down to what quarterback do you trust more in this matchup? Caden McNamara for Michigan, and wins against Washington and last week against Rutgers. Both of those games, run the ball. They got out to good, comfortable leads, and you could tell they really just shut him down mid-game in the second half, basically holding on for dear life for victory because he has not proven he is an efficient and legit passer. You can tell Michigan has no confidence in their quarterback play. In those 2 games, against Washington and against Rutgers, he has averaged 99 passing yards, and he has yet to throw a touchdown pass against a Power 5 opponent. So something has to give. I mean, the Wisconsin defense is still salty as ever, a good old salt by like. They can still get it done. But also it comes down to Wisconsin's quarterback play. Is Graham Mertz going to continue to give the ball away at will? He's like Oprah. You get an interception, you get an interception, and you get an interception. Or is he going to be the Graham Mertz we saw his first career start last year against Illinois when he was, I think, 30 of 31, maybe 31 of 32? Is that Graham Mertz somewhere inside of him, or was it really more or less just playing an Illinois secondary? We don't know. So stand by. This game, some of these games may or may not have made the pick'em. My pick'em for this week. Stand by. Stay tuned. You'll wait soon. You'll find out here shortly. So big game there in the Big Ten. Another one, number 3, Oregon at Stanford. Can the Ducks remain undefeated? They are undefeated, number 3 in the nation. They prospered off that victory in week 2 at Ohio State, knocking off the Buckeyes. But this is kind of a rivalry renewed. Stanford has always seemed to give them problems. And you know me, for if you've watched our episodes, I am a student of history, and I believe it does repeat itself, and we need to learn from this. Stanford has won 3 of the last 5 against Oregon because they have kind of figured out what the blueprint is to beat Oregon, and they normally do execute it to a T, and that is control the line of scrimmage, possession, run the ball, be physical, keep that vaunted, quick, athletic Oregon offense, quick strike offense on the sideline, and victory can be yours. They have figured it out. So can Oregon escape the farm, Palo Alto, undefeated, or will they fall again to their rival? Time will tell. Once again, just intriguing matchups across the board this week. Next game I want to point out In the SEC, number 10 Florida travels to Lexington, the snake pit of Kentucky. Tough place to play. Week 2, Missouri, our Tigers saw that. That was a tough environment. They almost pulled out the victory in Lexington. But this is a huge game, especially for the SEC East, which can affect Missouri when we see who wins this game. Is Kentucky, both these teams are undefeated, by the way, surprisingly. Can Kentucky continue this momentum? And if they knock off number 10 Florida, that puts them in position to be the main challenger, if anybody can challenge Georgia, to be the challenger to Georgia and maybe win the SEC East or at least finish second place, which is going to get you a very, very nice bowl game and bowl game destination. So we'll have to wait and see. Can they slow down the Florida rush attack? Because we know what the Wildcats are going to do. They're going to be physical. They have a quarterback in Will Levis who can toss the ball. They actually have a quarterback this year who can perform very well vertically up and down the field, but they're primarily going to be feeding those two running backs. You're going to have Chris Rodriguez and my boy Cavassier Smoke. Can the Wildcats do it? Intriguing matchup there. Next one, because I am Mr. History, I've got to point out this matchup in the Little Big Apple, Manhattan, Kansas. Number 6, Oklahoma, who is struggling on offense. Pulled off a victory last week, 16-13, a walk-off field goal at home in Norman against the Mountaineers. Number 6, Oklahoma travels to Kansas State. And the reason why, you're probably thinking, Blair, it's Kansas State. True. But Kansas State, much like Stanford versus Oregon, maybe they have found the blueprint to beating Oklahoma. K-State has defeated the Sooners 2 times straight. They have a 2-game winning streak against them. Can they make it 3? And the key to success that they will do, Coach Kleiman will keep the ball on the ground, be physical, win the line of scrimmage, force Oklahoma into some mistakes, and it has paid dividends for Coach Kleiman in K-State since he took over. We'll see. Can this Oklahoma, how they have escaped? They escaped against Nebraska 2 weeks ago in a 7-point victory. Will they escape against West Virginia, as mentioned? Will that continue, or will this finally come tumbling in on the Oklahoma offense? Stay tuned. So the last game, and this is huge. This is our spotlight game of the week. It's going to be the last game we will pick, and it is because there is storylines inside of storylines for this matchup. Number 12, Ole Miss, the Rebels, travel to number 1, Alabama. Can the Rebels, can the New Alliance travel to T-Town, to Tuscaloosa, the home base of the Death Star, and can they blow up Death Star 3 and the Alabama Crimson Tide and Nick Saban? Can they do this? Ole Miss has a very vaunted offense. Will that be enough? Can their defense make enough stops to slow down the Alabama attack? But the other storylines are, this is former pupil versus former teacher, young Padawan versus Jedi. You have Lane Kiffin versus the best, the GOAT, Nick Saban. And just to remind you, to this point, Nick Saban is a perfect 23-0 against former assistants and staffers. Will that streak continue? Now, if you watched earlier in this season during our Crystal Ball episode 2, I did say that sometime this year, one of his former assistants would beat Nick Saban. Whether that be Lane Kiffin this week, the following week, Jimbo Fisher down at A&M, or Kirby Smart at Georgia if these two teams meet up in the SEC title game. Can the Rebels do it? Is there hope for the Rebellion? Can they do it? They'll arrive in Tuscaloosa with their X-Wings and their Y-Wings, led by the Millennium Falcon. Will it be enough? Also, too, to the winner of this game, these are the quarterbacks for each squad. Bryce Young for Alabama and quarterback for Ole Miss, Matt Corral. These are right now to me, the two front runners for the Heisman Trophy. Bryce Young, more or less because he plays for Alabama. I mean, he's had a good season, but I'm not quite sold on him yet. But sometimes, to the rich go the spoils, right? And if you are the quarterback at Alabama, you've got a shot to win the Heisman Trophy. Matt Corral, I am absolutely on board. Huge, huge game for these two individuals for the Heisman Trophy hardware. So, like I said, storylines inside of storylines for this one. Stay tuned. I'll give you my pick. I'll let you know what Charlie thinks about this one and Brad. So those are some of the primary matchups I wanted to bring your attention to this week. So now let's move on to my next topic, which now I'm going to give you my updated Power 5 conference rankings heading into week 5. And if you watched last week's preview, this is the exact same as last week. There has been no movement, but I will explain to you if this conference has opened up a little bit of a lead on this one and vice versa. But I do like to have fun with this segment. So what I've done, this is the third time I've unveiled these power rankings. I gave it a couple weeks to see. And the first week, I used the theme around Bruce Springsteen songs. Last week, I went with Tom Hanks movies. So I'm going to keep that going. I'm going to keep that little give and take kind of. This week is going to be music. And if you know me personally, I mean, I don't have any pride issues. I mean, I've been married long enough. That's not a worry. That I am comfortable admitting that I am a huge Prince fan. Maybe not top 5, top 10, maybe top 15, absolutely. So as I unveil my conference power rankings, they're going to revolve around Prince song titles. So let's get it. First, my number one conference on my list is the SEC. Currently, the conference has 7 teams ranked in the AP Top 25. That is the most of any Power 5 conference team, including 1 and 2, Alabama and Georgia. And those 2 teams are also 1 and 2 in my team power rankings, but just flip-flopped. So because they have 7, the song has to be, "Oh, 7, and we'll watch them fall." So SEC is 7, number 1 for conference power rankings. And so this week we're really going to see who is at the top of the SEC after these 6 matchups. And I'll get to those matchups here shortly as well. Number two on this week's conference power rankings is the Big Ten. Currently, the Big Ten has 5 teams that are ranked in the AP Top 5. That's second among Power 5 conferences. Because right now, Iowa fans, we're excited. We're number 5 in the nation. Penn State fans are number 4 currently. And we've been able to carry the banner. Ohio State is still good, people. Do not make that mistake. But defensively, they have holes and then some, just like the little Dutch boy with the hole in the dam. And they find themselves number 11 outside the top 10 in this week's AP poll. So because of that, those 2 teams have kept the Big Ten relevant. We're playing good football. So right now, the song for the Big Ten is "Let's Go Crazy." Let's go crazy. Let's get loose. Let's go nuts. Let's do that. Big Ten, let's go crazy, because we actually have other teams who are going to be able to challenge Ohio State, the Ohio State University, spelled T-H-E. Anyway, so the Big Ten is let's go crazy, number 2. Number 3 for this week's conference power rankings, I have the Pac-12. And after capturing our hearts and minds early in the season, I was beating the drum. I was beating the drum as louder as anyone else. I was absolutely enthralled with the Pac-12. I was all about them, on the bandwagon. But very quickly, basically in 1 week, everything has come crashing down. Granted, they still have Oregon, who's undefeated and number 3 in the nation, but that is their only undefeated team. Just to give you some more facts about the Pac-12, 8 of their 12 teams, 8, have at least 2 losses, and 4 of the 12 have at least 3 losses. That is remarkable. UCLA, still a good team. They're ranked number 20. They had a loss to Fresno State, but just how quickly things changed for the Pac-12. I mean, here I am. I feel like I'm just talking with my hands today. I'm wiggling, I'm jiggling, I'm having a good time. I'm so pumped for this weekend, people. I mean, it's hard for me just to keep within myself. But the Pac-12, because it's switched and changed so quickly overnight, the song by Prince has got to be Delirious. I get delirious. We're delirious with what's going on in the Pac-12. And hopefully my picks, my Utah pick, can still win the Pac-12 South. But they have some big matchups this weekend too. And I'm going to unveil some of those here shortly. Number four on this week's conference power rankings is the Big 12. For the second consecutive week, following a lackluster performance, Oklahoma has dropped again in the AP poll. We have undefeated Baylor, undefeated Oklahoma State, who are meeting up this weekend, as I mentioned. Can one of those two teams challenge Oklahoma? Can Texas right the ship on defense? Can Iowa State find themselves? Can they wake up? Some teams don't have the offense, some don't have the defense, some don't have the special teams. So they might need just a little bit of help, a little bit of guiding. So the Big 12 this week has got to be Purple Rain. Let me guide you through the purple rain. Purple rain, purple rain. Woo! All right. So number 4 was the Big 12 with Purple Rain by Prince. So at the back of the field and continuing to lose ground, and to kind of back up here a little bit, the SEC prior to going into week 4, maybe they could hear the footsteps of the Big Ten behind them. Now I think they have pulled away. Because I do want to remind folks, the week that was in the Big Ten, definitely a week to forget. Iowa, our Hawkeyes, they did win 24-14, so not very impressive at home against a game Colorado State team. But a victory is a victory. We're 4-0. I saw good things offensively on the improvement side. I'll get to that later. So that wasn't a great thing for the Big Ten. Minnesota absolutely was a natural disaster, a loss of epic proportions. Minnesota loses at home on homecoming weekend as a 31-point favorite to Bowling Green State University out of the MAC. At least you can say it was a Division I team you lost to, but still, you don't necessarily have to cover and beat those guys by 32 points, but losing to Bowling Green, who had lost 10 straight against Division I opponents, awful, devastating loss for the Fighting Fleckers. Is the boat taken on water? Are those canoes lost? What can we do to right the ship there? And boy, so that was not good. That was no bueno for the Big Ten. Optically, did not look good. And then what's going on in Nebraska? If you've been paying attention to my episodes this year, I did say entering the season that Scott Frost, his seat was in fuego, definitely on the hot seat. And then you add the news right before their game, week 0 against Illinois, about an ongoing investigation by the NCAA due to having off-campus workouts during the COVID shutdown, using analysts as assistant coaches on the field for practice, which you cannot do that. And there was supposedly taped evidence of this, so that did not help him at all. And they find themselves 2-3. A very good moral victory once again for Nebraska over week 4 at a ranked Michigan State team, which, quite frankly, I'm not sold on Michigan State. But they found another way to lose yet another close game. Let me give you some stats. In this game that they lost, Nebraska basically gained almost 200 yards more than Michigan State. they got 10 more first downs. In the second half, Michigan State got 1 first down, and Nebraska ended up losing the game in overtime. That now drops Scott Frost's record in 1 possession games to a dismal 5-15. That is absolutely unbelievable. Huge game for them this week. They host a reeling Northwestern squad in Lincoln. And I'm saying it right now on record, if they find a way to lose that game to Northwestern, I absolutely expect Monday morning, Monday afternoon at the latest, Scott Frost will be relieved as coach at Nebraska. Saying it right now, if Northwestern goes there and wins. And also, I already talked about the Wisconsin debacle, their implosion against Notre Dame. I mean, so not a banner weekend for the Big Ten, week 4, but still find themselves number 2, but now the SEC has started to pull back away. So back to it. So the 5th place, number 5 on this week's conference power rankings is the ACC. I mean, Clemson suffered its 2nd loss during week 4 to, the NC State Wolfpack. This guy called that game a game that almost ended up being a loss, but sometimes where there's a loss, there's a victory. The NC State field goal kicker was 0 for 3 during regulation, including a walk-off miss that would have guaranteed victory in regulation instead of overtime. So crisis averted there. That was red alert there for a little bit. Red alert. But they came away with the victory. So North Carolina suffered their 2nd loss over the weekend. They started the season number 10 in the nation, and they lost to an average Georgia Tech squad in Atlanta. So now, I mean, the teams that have come out and said we are maybe the favorites to win is a undefeated and ranked Wake Forest squad, number 24 in the nation, who, by the way, has the smallest undergraduate enrollment in the country at the Power 5 level. Little tidbit, little fact bit there for you, factoid. And also NC State, who's ranked after that win over Clemson, but they do have 1 non-conference loss at Mississippi State. And also Boston College, who I mentioned, is currently undefeated, and they have a huge statement type of game at Clemson that I've already highlighted. So ACC falling way behind. I mean, your prized thoroughbred is sidelined. Clemson's out of the playoff discussion. I don't care what happens. They still could potentially win the conference, but they're not making the playoff. Who knows what Miami's going to do on the other side of the ACC or North Carolina. So for the ACC, the Prince song that's fitting, this is what it sounds like when doves cry. That's all I got to say about that. So that is the updated conference power rankings entering week 5. Next week, tune in for the week 6 preview show, and I'll give you my updated conference power rankings. Good stuff. All right, so now let's move into our next topic. Let me get a quick little swig of water. And how are we doing on time? Great. We're doing excellent. Want to keep this going and try to wrap this up a little sooner than normal to save you guys, all this, like I mentioned. So next, let's go into what I forecast for our black and golds. And I'm going to start with our Missouri Tigers today. If you watched the Week 4 review show earlier this week, I did mention that this is an absolute must-win game for Missouri this Saturday. They host a rebuilding, reeling Tennessee Volunteer squad. So both of these head coaches are trying to establish themselves, turn the corner, build for the future. So that's why this is a huge matchup of 2 teams, 2 coaches that kind of find themselves right here, facing off. As far as this, whoever wins this game, it has huge implications moving forward for trust purposes, for recruiting, and just how do we feel moving forward. But I'm going to break this down, and I kind of teased this a little bit earlier this week during the review show, is I'm going to use this example for why this is so important for Missouri. Let's imagine that we have a 3-story mansion. There's a ground floor, there's a penthouse, and there's a basement. Now I'm going to give you the teams in the SEC where they currently are in this mansion. So let's go ahead and start off with the ground floor. Actually, let's start on the ground floor. How about that? That's a good place to start. So these are teams that currently occupy the ground floor. And the ground floor is not a bad place to be. The bedrooms are big. You know, there's lots of amenities. The bathrooms have a toilet and a bidet, you know, so enjoy it. Good things. It's not a bad place to be on the ground floor. Currently in the ground floor, taking up residency in the SEC in this mansion is Kentucky, Missouri, Texas A&M, and Auburn. And I base this on recent history, wins, trends, so within the last 5 years. And obviously everybody wants to move up, nobody wants to move down. So those are the teams that are currently sitting pretty comfortably on the ground floor. Now there's also one team whose boxes are packed and they're preparing to either try to move up or move down. Actually, for them, they're preparing to move down. So maybe they have 1 foot on the stairs heading down to the basement, and that's Tennessee. So what Missouri wants to do, when you are up against somebody who's at the same position as you, as far as prestige, level, and overall grit and standing, what you want to do is keep them down, if not knock them down lower. Do not let them leapfrog you. Because if they do, then you could find yourself packing up your boxes and potentially moving down to the basement. So Tennessee is getting ready to potentially move down to the basement. This is a huge game for Missouri to allow that to happen, to keep them down for those reasons that I mentioned: recruiting, prestige, and staying power, and also to put your trust in the new regime and the head coaches and staffs. So these are the teams. Let's go now to the basement. So the basement is not where you want to be. I mean, there's no walls. It's, you know, cold as hell during the winter, hot as hell during the summer. I mean, there is no bathroom. You have one piss pot, basically. And nobody wants to be a resident in the basement. Okay, you just don't want to be there. It's like the boiler room from the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Currently, I've got some teams that are taking up residency in the basement. They've got their cots, their blankets, their trinkets. That would be Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Mississippi State. Now, there's 2 teams that have their boxes packed and are potentially ready to move out, which would be up to the ground floor. And those are Arkansas and Ole Miss. Ole Miss, some of you might disagree with where I have them, but Arkansas you should. Let me just give you quickly the last 5 years their records. 7-6, 4-8, 2-10, ouch. 2-10 again, 3-7, but now look where they are this year. Top 10, undefeated, huge statement game coming up to prove it that they belong. So they've got their boxes packed, ready to move up, depending on how the rest of the season plays out. Now, Ole Miss, also there, but they don't necessarily have 1 foot on the stairwell. They're maybe still just standing in the middle of the basement, asking themselves, now where do I go? Because they still need a lot. They still have to prove a lot, but they can take a huge step this weekend going to Tuscaloosa and defeating Alabama. Their records the last 5 years, we've got a 5-7, 6-6, 5-7, 4-8, 5-5. So for some of you who might disagree with where I have your current teams, that's fine. Comment, give me a holler. I'd be happy to discuss it with you on the air. That would be great. So those are the teams I have currently in the basement. Now, where everybody wants to be, the penthouse, you know, where you have maids, you have butlers. Every time you hear a nice little, they come running with grapes and wines and the finest cheeses. That's where you want to be. All right, and these teams want to do what they can to stay there. And the teams I've got in the SEC penthouse are Alabama, LSU, Georgia, and Florida. So once again, a must-win game. We got a little thunder and lightning outside, if you guys are hearing that, a little storm coming through. But so this is a must-win game for Missouri to keep Tennessee below you. Don't let them leapfrog you. Do it on the field. That's one thing that cannot be discussed or argued. Also, too, if this game does not go the way I see it for Missouri, and I do believe Missouri should win this game. Will I pick them? Stay tuned. You'll find out shortly. But if they lose this game, they are looking 6-6 right in the face. During our episode 3 earlier this season, our predictions, I broke down Missouri's schedule. I projected them to go 8-4, just like I did for Iowa at that time. And I believe their ceiling could be 9-3, but floor 6-6. And right now, if they lose this game, they are looking at 6-6 right in the face. And here's why. When you look at their schedule, what's left for them? Yes, they have still games remaining that I thought would be wins or losses. But moving forward, I only see after this week 3 wins that I feel good about, that most everyone would feel good about. They have one more non-conference game next week against the North Texas Mean Green. Feel good about that one. They host South Carolina. Feel good about that being a victory. And then travel to Vandy. And if Vandy is going to keep showing a pulse, that's been a house of horrors recently for Missouri. They have a couple bad losses in Nashville to where that may not be a gimme, but I still feel good about that. There's 3 wins. So right now they have 2. That'd be 5 wins. And beating Tennessee gets you to 6. You want to try to get to a bowl game this year if you're Missouri. That would be progress, to get those extra practices especially. I didn't believe, like Charlie did, we didn't believe that Missouri was going to challenge for an SEC crown this year. But if they keep making strides, killing it on the recruiting trail, putting in Coach Drinkowicz's system, next year they might be ready to challenge Georgia and Florida. But they need to get to a bowl game. So if they lose, they're looking at 5 wins. And can they beat an A&M? Can they pull a miracle at Georgia? Can they defeat a Florida team that looks a lot better than I thought they were going to be? And also going to Arkansas, who now is running all over the place. And I've said it, we know what Missouri's deficiencies are. It's stopping the run. So this is a huge game for Missouri. I mean, button it down, try to stop the run. If you hold them to 200 yards rushing, maybe 150, you should win the game. If it's going to be another 250-yard plus game against an SEC opponent, and I don't think Tennessee's really all that good. Their offense does not scare me. But they know what the weaknesses are for Missouri. If they do that, Missouri might get another loss, and then it could be trouble in River City for Missouri. But see how I pick it here in a little bit. So a huge game, must-win game. Now for Iowa, for my Hawkeyes, huge game. Short week. Haven't really mentioned it yet. They play a Friday night. So I am less than right now. I am 28 hours away from kickoff. I am so geeked. 29, sorry. My math, once again, never claimed to be rocket scientist. 29 hours away from kickoff for my Hawkeyes. They get the Friday night tilt this week. They're on the road. Short week of practice and preparation. Travel to our nation's capital to take on the undefeated Maryland Terrapins, who are playing much better. And this is going to be a tough challenge for them. I mean, Maryland's offense can spread the ball. Tagovailoa, Tua's little brother, you remember him from Alabama, now killing it. Well, he's sidelined currently for the Miami Dolphins at the NFL. They're averaging 350 yards passing, and I've said it time and time again, Iowa's defensive backfield is very good. So I don't expect him to have 350 yards passing against Iowa's defense. It's going to come down to what can the Iowa offense do. And I will say this, I mean, the Big Ten there is not a lot of good quarterback play throughout the conference this season. It is not. It is lacking. Quite arguably, Iowa's going to play the two best quarterbacks the next 2 weeks back to back than they'll play any time during the rest of the season, with Taulia Tagovailoa and then Sean Clifford. Those two right now are leading early on in stats in the Big Ten Conference. Can Iowa's defense slow down the pass attack? And can they not, can they avoid a loss? Now, if you recall, during the predictions episode 3, I did pick Maryland to beat Iowa during the preseason. Will I stick with that call? Stand by. You're going to find your answer here shortly. But it would be very disappointing if Iowa goes on the road, takes a loss, especially with that huge matchup with Penn State on the horizon next week in Kinnick Stadium. Could potentially be two top 5 teams that are undefeated. Huge profile game. And I'm not being Mr. Homer Simpson. I mentioned this week it was difficult to pick a spotlight game. There were so many to choose from. But next week, it is absolutely going to be Penn State at Iowa is going to be our spotlight game next week. So can Iowa avoid that loss, that upset loss, the trap game? It's a trap. Can they avoid that? I mean, all they have to do is be average. Don't turn the ball over. I think if Maryland ends up throwing for 250 yards, that'll be more or less kind of indicating that Iowa absolutely shut down the Maryland rush offense. And this is not a great Maryland defense. Right now, their numbers look pretty good, but they really haven't played anyone. They've played Howard, who's an FCS opponent, Illinois, and Illinois should have won that game. Maryland did not win convincingly at all. They do have a decent win over a West Virginia squad that I think can be maybe a little bit of a sleeper in the Big 12. But they absolutely have not played a defense like Iowa yet, or a special teams unit like Iowa has. So we'll have to wait and see. I mean, but I do forecast Iowa's streak, the streak of 24 points or less. I think that will be extended to 27 games after Friday night's game. It just comes down to, quite frankly, can the offense do enough? Don't do too much. Don't do too little. Just do what you have to do. And I think they will leave with a victory, staying undefeated. And I will tell you, this game scares me. It does. It actually probably scares me more than next week's game at home against Penn State, because I do believe Iowa needs one more game offensively to make those baby steps towards being average. I think they need one more game. So this game scares me. Next week, not so much. So that's how I see it playing out for our black and golds this week. So 2 huge games. Huge games for MIZ-ZOU and IOWA. 2 huge games. Check back next week for the review show. I'll let you know how it went. One little swig. Also, this is a good time to remind you, if you like what you're seeing, what you're hearing, or if you don't like what you're hearing, that's fine too. This is America after all. You have a right to your opinion. Please feel free. Get the word out there. Let's get this out to black and gold fans alike, every college football fan, sport fan, the fanatical fan, the casual fan, the fan that just wants some talking points. Please like, share, subscribe, get it out there. Having a great time. The more people I have involved, the better. So now I have in my hand everyone's favorite segment, Pick'em. For the Pick'em segment is upon us. So here we have our Week 5 picks, and these are big time. Let me bring you up to speed on where we are for the season. Charlie and I, my former co-host, we have an ongoing competition. Currently, I am at 60. I think I have him 40 to 20. You know what? I actually do not have those in front of me, but I will have those updated for the Week 5 review show on Tuesday. But right now, just know this. I am in the lead, the people's champion, 3 straight weeks out of 4, on top. Now that I'm on top, everybody wants to push me down, but it ain't going to happen. This week, I welcome my guest picker, friend, colleague, the Brad, man I work with, huge Missouri fans, been a loyal black and gold vlogger from the vlog fan from the get-go. So that's what I do. That's how I roll. I'm going to reward those who've been faithful to us. So he wants a shot at the title, not just my title, but also as title for the best guest picker we've had on the show so far. And I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to have a few more guest pickers on. And then near the end of the season, we're going to have a little tournament. You know, we'll have a playoff. And at the end of the season, at the end of the bowl season and the playoffs, maybe I'm going to put together a little award for the best guest picker, maybe a little trophy, gift card, something that'll be sentimental. So we'll see how Brad does. So here we go. It's like Thunderdome. 3 men enter, 1 man's going to leave. Let's get it. So here we go. So let me bring up his, I do have them right here. Here we go. I've got Brad's picks in front of me, but I got a little commentary that he sent me, and I love that. I love when our guest pickers give me a little analysis. And hopefully all of you are enjoying what you're hearing from me. I know seeing might be a little difficult, but hopefully you enjoy my analysis, my commentary, my puns, my attempt at comedy relief, and I do what I can. But let's get into it. Week 5 picks coming at you now. First up, we have number 8 Arkansas at number 2 Georgia. And let's see what our guest picker says. Brad says, the hedges will be rocking, but the Razorbacks get the win. Brad's going with Arkansas on the road. Love the pick, but I got to disagree. I think coming off that physical game last week against A&M, they're going to be a little bit bruised. I definitely, if I was a betting man, I would go with Arkansas to keep it close. 17 points? That's not going to happen, I don't think. But I still don't really know how good the Georgia offense is. This is going to be a huge telling game. Once again, that's why it's the second course soup and salad for the ongoing main courses. And I cannot wait for this game. I got Georgia. Charlie also likes Georgia. So we have our first disagreement right out of the gate. Next game on the docket, Boston College at number 25 Clemson. Let's see how Brad sees this game. He says, Clemson's free fall continues. BC is for real. I love their attitude. I love the coach. That'd be Jeff Hafley, former DC from Ohio State. He's going with the Eagles. Love that pick. I've been high on this team from day one, but pump the brakes. I think Clemson looks deep inside. They do enough on offense. They bounce back. I like Clemson. So does Charlie. We have another disagreement. Absolutely love it. Next, a game on the docket. Number 14, Michigan at Wisconsin. Game I did talk a little bit about. The Brads got. The Khakis pull off a late field goal. Wolverines get it done. He likes Harbaugh and those boys to get it done. Charlie also likes Michigan. Me, this is how I see this game going. If I'm Paul Chryst, the head coach at Wisconsin, I'm telling myself and my offensive coaches, the whole staff, that this week I'm going to take my running backs and run them into the effing ground. Graham Mertz is not going to have to throw the ball more than 15 times. If he goes 11 or 12 of 15, but does not turn it over at a high clip, maybe just one turnover, we can live with. That is what's going to happen. This is a game that Wisconsin can win 10-3, 10-6, 13-7. It's going to be that kind of game. I trust their defense, especially against the run. I said they have the stingiest rush defense in the nation. I like Wisconsin to play Wisconsin football, and they win it in a defensive struggle, low scoring, forward Wisconsin is what I've got. Another disagreement. Number 4, next game on the docket. Number 21, Baylor, undefeated at number 19, undefeated Oklahoma State. Brad's got great matchup. He says, I'm not quite 40, but I'm a man. He's going with the Pokes and the Cowboys at home in Stillwater. Charlie, Charlie and I are in agreement. There is something about this Baylor squad. This Baylor squad plays good defense. Dave Aranda, their head coach, is a defensive coordinator, ex-DC, tough guy. And their quarterback, they have a playmaker, beating Iowa State. I think they've proven more to me. Charlie and I both like Baylor on the road, pull the upset, stay undefeated. So Baylor wins. Next game, number 10 Florida at Kentucky. Another one of the games that I talked a little bit about. Let's see how Brad's got this one going. Brad has another great game from the greatest conference. Wildcats go wild and upset the Gators. Brad likes the Wildcats. Good pick, but I think this Florida team is just going to be too much for them. I think offensively, they're just going to do enough to escape Lexington with a victory. I like Florida. So does Charlie. Next game up is number 7 Cincinnati at number 9 Notre Dame. The Super Bowl, the game of games for Cincinnati. The game that they've had circled on their schedule all off season. I've talked about it with friends. I'm excited. Can't wait to watch this one. Let's see how Brad sees this game going. He says the Irish are looking sloppy. Cincy wins. He likes the Bearcats to defeat the Golden Domers in South Bend with the fights on. The ghost of Newt Rockne, watching the game. We're going to go inside. We're going to go outside. We're going to go inside and outside. We're going to get them on the run. We're going to keep them on the run. And we're not going to pass until the secondary comes up. And then we're going to give them on the run. We're going to go, 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 go. And we're not going to stop until we get over that goal line. But I don't think Notre Dame gets it done. This game, Brad and I, we both like Cincinnati to go in there and pull the upset. But Charlie likes Notre Dame. Another disagreement. Absolutely love this. Someone's going to come out big this week, and someone's going to come out way big on the losing end, if you catch my drift. Next game up, Indiana at number 4 Penn State. I think this is going to be a tough game. Indiana finally has started to look a little bit more Indiana-like. Michael Penix, opening week at Iowa, 34-6 was the score. Never in doubt for the Hawkeyes, for my Hawkeyes. But he finally looks to be a little bit more comfortable. Will this be the week that Indiana plays Indiana football? Penn State definitely goes up in competition. Will this be the week? Can they win, or will Penn State have a letdown game? Maybe they're looking forward to that game on the horizon at Iowa next week. Let's see how Brad sees this game. Brad says, Penn State rolls the Hoosiers. Wow, that is short and sweet, so he must like Penn State big. Brad's got Penn State. Charlie likes Penn State. Me, I've got my pick made. Boy, I'm thinking, I've thought a lot about this game, and I'm thinking even more about it now. I might call it audible. Check, check, check. Will this be the week that Indiana looks Indiana-like? Which would be great, because then it also elevates Iowa's profile. But I can't do it. I got to stick with my pick. We all like Penn State to get the victory over Indiana. Next game, Arizona State travels to number 20 UCLA. Definitely the winner of this game, I think, then kind of proves they are the leader at this point in the Pac-12 South, which is going to be so highly contested. UCLA's good. Arizona State's good. Utah can be good. USC can also be good. We don't know. I mean, this is a huge game for the Pac-12 South. Brad, what he says is Brad has... Everyone will be doing a one-chip challenge. UCLA wins. Charlie likes UCLA. So do I. We all agree. I think they're just physically too much for the Sun Devils. Next game up is number 3 Oregon at Stanford. Game I talked about. Will history repeat itself? Can Stanford knock off the Ducks again? Let's see what Brad's got. He says, big rivalry, but the Stanford tree burns quickly and easy. Ducks win. Ouch, he must like Oregon big. Charlie also likes Oregon. I think this is going to be a highly contested, close game. I always am looking for an upset. I mean, especially if Oregon loses. Iowa gets the victory at Maryland. They would move up in the polls. but I don't see it happening. We all like UCLA. Go Bruins. Next game up is now we start our spotlight games of the week. And first one up is we'll do our black and golds next. So Missouri. So we have Tennessee at Missouri. Like I said, huge must-win game for our Tigers. Need to get it done. You know what you've got to do. You just have to execute, tackle, look in yourselves, look at each other, get it done, perform. I think Coach Drink, can he get those guys up? Can he get them ready? Let's find out. Brad says Coach Drink hits on a few big plays, takes advantage of a rebuilding Vols team. He likes Missouri. Charlie likes the Tigers, and so do I. I am not ready to give up on Missouri yet, but they have got to have this victory. We all like the Tigers at home. Now we have number 5, Iowa. My Hawkeyes travel to Maryland. It's a huge potential snake pit for the Hawkeyes. Huge game next week. Undefeated team in Maryland that's playing better than I thought they would. But it comes down to, have they played a team at this caliber? Can Iowa escape with the victory? What does Brad think? Brad says, the Terps take this game into overtime, but Iowa does what Iowa does and Iowa things. They win a scrappy game. He likes Iowa close. Charlie also likes Iowa. Me, once again, I've got my pick right here, but I'm thinking about calling an audible now that I'm thinking about this game. It's been on my mind. Like Georgia, Georgia, darling Georgia, Iowa, Iowa, Maryland, on my mind. Like I said, this week's game scares me more than Penn State next week. We know who Penn State is. They've shown inability to run the ball at this point. Sean Clifford may or may not be as good as advertised. We've played them a lot recently. They've always been close games, competitive. This game scares me, and I just think that the Iowa offense is going to take a step or two in the right direction this week, but I think it won't be enough. I am taking Maryland. It pains me to say I'm taking Maryland to defeat my Hawkeyes Friday night. Next game is our Academy Spotlight game. Every week I always pick one game involving the Naval Academy, Army, or Air Force as a salute to our military men and women. This week the Academy Spotlight game is UCF. Out of the American travels to Navy. Brad says, always salute the military. Navy wins. Charlie, he likes UCF. Me, I've picked Navy twice for our Pick'em segment. They've let me down both times. I'm sorry. This is not the Navy teams of the recent past with Keenan Reynolds. This team has fallen on hard times. I think they're actually still winless. I'm going with UCF as well. So we have another disagreement among our threesome. Next game is our non-Power 5 Spotlight game of the week. I always pick one of these. Give a shout out, some love to the non-Power 5 teams. This week, Louisiana, Coach Billy Napier, I think, who may be the next coach at LSU. We'll have to wait and see how the rest of the season plays out. They travel to Undefeated South Alabama. Huge Sun Belt matchup for the Jaguars out of nowhere. One of the darlings still dancing. Let's see what Brad thinks. South Alabama drinks some Tuscaloosa water, beats Louisiana. He likes the Jaguars. Charlie, he likes Louisiana. I don't know much about South Alabama, but I do know this. Alabama, the state of Alabama, you can spread the love and the riches a little bit. You have Alabama. You have Auburn, who's ranked. You have UAB, who's an excellent program at the non-Power 5 level. Spread the love, spread the riches. I like Louisiana in this game on the road. So I think South Alabama's undefeated season comes to an end. Now, our next Spotlight game is the FCS Spotlight game of the week, and we have a big one this week. We have a top 10 matchup at the FCS level. Montana travels to Roos Field. which if you don't know this, a lot of you know about the Smurf turf. The blue turf at Boise State, Roos Field at Eastern Washington is red. It's even more difficult on the eyes. This is going to be an excellent game. Let me give you some stats because this is an intriguing matchup. And I love about this game, it's actually on ESPN2 Saturday night. I love the big networks are giving some coverage to the FCS squads. Please watch this game. It's going to be awesome. You have Eastern Washington, who leads the FCS in scoring offense, up against the Montana Grizzlies, who lead the FCS in scoring defense. Something's got to give. What a matchup. Both of these teams earlier this year scored victories over Division I opponents. Eastern Washington went to UNLV and won in overtime. Montana went to Washington and knocked off, at the time, the number 20 team, Washington Huskies. Let's see how Brad sees this FCS game playing out. FCS has some solid talent. Montana boys on the road. So Brad's going with the Hannah Montanas. Charlie also likes Montana, the Grizzlies. Another disagreement. I think the red turf is hard on the eyes for the Grizzlies. I'm going with the Eagles of Eastern Washington. Now, here we go. Finally, the curtains come up. Here's our spotlight game of the week. Number 12 Ole Miss travels to T-Town, Tuscaloosa to take on number 1 Alabama. Can the new Rebel Alliance do it? Can they blow up the Death Star 3? Will it happen today? Let's see what Brad thinks. Alabama makes this game look easier than it should be. Roll Tide. Ouch. And we have seen that so many times. When we sat here and talked, when experts, journalists, writers, TV personalities said this is going to be a tough game. We actually think Alabama is going to lose or be tested or struggle. And they've done exactly that. Rolled. Made it look easy. It could be that. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Brad likes Bama. Charlie also likes Alabama. Me, I am torn because I did forecast that one of his former assistants, Nick Saban's former assistants, would beat him this year. Maybe it can be Lane Kiffin. Maybe not. I'm torn, but I'm going Alabama as well. Hopefully I'm wrong, because that would be another feather in the cap of this year being a year like none other with the parity, to where then, think about that for 1 second. Clemson has 2 losses already. Ohio State has a loss. And if Alabama takes a loss, how much would that shake up the college football landscape? To where every year, preseason, we always talk in the last 4 or 5 years, what's the playoff going to look like? It's going to be Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State, and one of these 2 or 3 teams. But maybe not this year, especially if this trend continues. So maybe Ole Miss can do the unthinkable. We'll see, but I'm picking Alabama for now. So there you have it. There's our picks for the week. Check back, watch the Week 5 review. That'll be out Tuesday afternoon, possibly Wednesday morning, to let you know who won, who's victorious, the agony of defeat, and the thrill of victory. Check back, and I'll bring you up to speed. And quickly here, I'm going to go ahead and also give you some off-the-radar games and my trap. It's a trap. The trap games of the weekend. Off the radar, Louisville travels to number 24 Wake Forest. Can they handle success, Wake Forest? Can they sustain this success? We'll have to wait and see. Louisville's won 3 in a row. Can Wake Forest slow them down? We'll have to wait and see. Nevada travels to Boise State off the radar. Carson Strong, stud quarterback for the Wolfpack. See what I did there? Can they go to the blue turf and win? We'll have to wait and see. I've already mentioned this game. Number 6, Oklahoma at K-State. Can the Wildcats make it a 3-peat? Can they make it 3 in a row against the Sooners? Tune in and see. Also, trap off the radar game. Washington at Oregon State. If you recall, Oregon State over the weekend went to USC. beat the Trojans in the Coliseum with all the movie stars in attendance under the bright lights of the big city. Their first win in the Coliseum since 1960. Can they continue success? If Oregon State can beat Washington in Corvallis, they host the Huskies, then they definitely have announced themselves as a potential player in the Pac-12 North. Who saw that coming other than loyal Beavers fans? Who saw that coming? So my trap games, definitely going to revisit these during the review week. I like to give you at least usually 3 or 4, then I'll let you know if it was a hit or a direct hit or a miss. Texas at TCU, big game because next week is the Red River rivalry. Is Texas looking ahead to playing number 6 Oklahoma in Dallas? TCU coming off an embarrassing showing against SMU. Will they be caught looking ahead for the trap? So look out Texas for TCU. Number 22 Auburn, another huge conference showdown in the SEC. 22 Auburn travels to LSU. Next week Auburn travels to number 2 Georgia. Are they looking ahead? Are they looking past the Tigers? Go Tigers! Looking at for Georgia, we'll have to wait and see. Another trap game. And my last trap game, I also actually mentioned Oklahoma and K-State was a trap game of mine because next week Oklahoma is the other participant in the Red River rivalry. They play Texas. Are they looking ahead to playing Texas and Dallas? But they shouldn't be because of the recent success K-State's had over them. So could be a trap for Oklahoma. And the last one is my Iowa Hawkeyes. Could number 5 Iowa be caught looking ahead to next week's game against Penn State this Friday night at Maryland? We'll have to wait and see. Could be a trap. So that's it. Thanks for being with me. This has been so much fun. Really appreciate your viewership. I appreciate all of you, your support. Feel free, please. I'll ask you again, the Black and Gold family, like, share, subscribe, comment. Everything, as long as it's within reason, is acceptable. Let's all be adults now. Let's not pull some Kayvon, what was his name? Kayvon Popes, like the former Ohio State linebacker did last Saturday. I'll get to that maybe next week. But please feel free, spread the word. I appreciate you being with me. Enjoy the rest of the week and the weekend. This is an absolute godsend. What a Saturday slate we have. Also Friday night, see what the Hawkeyes can do. But until next week, remember, Black and Gold fans alike, ask not what the Black and Gold can do for you, but what you can do for the Black and Gold. Until next week, expect it Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday morning, the Week 5 review. Until next week, thank you, appreciate it. You're all amazing. Love you. Talk with you soon. Bye-bye.